Good morning. Hi, everyone. I can see that the room is starting to fill up. So thank you very much to everybody for taking the time out of your day to join the latest Security Middle East webinar. We're here joined by Johnson Controls Global Security Products today to discuss what is a really important topic, and that's outdated security systems. We're going to explore the hidden vulnerabilities of legacy technologies and share some practical guidance as well on identifying outdated systems and advice on the modernization and transition of these systems. Now, I want to get straight into this. It's a really exciting presentation, and we've got some very knowledgeable speakers. Stuart Bettle, who is Johnson Controls Senior Product Manager for Video Surveillance, and Raf Schrijvers, who is a Senior Product Manager for Access Control, who are going to talk us through this presentation. A couple of housekeeping bits. Please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat function. We love that engagement from audience members. And if you do have some questions for Raf or Stuart, pop them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we will endeavour to respond to these questions at the end of the presentation. So I'm not going to speak anymore. Stuart, allow me to hand over to you to get stuck into this really important topic.
Good day, everybody. I'm Stuart, and it's going to be my pleasure, along with Raf, who will say hello equally in a moment, although he's on mute also, I see.
Yeah, hello, good morning.
There we go. So we're both now audible and visible. Thanks in advance for your time, as always, on these webinars. This webinar today, as has been very eloquently introduced, vulnerabilities of outdated systems. The agenda is here, and for those who've been on presentations of mine and Raf's before, you know we don't read the slides. They are there. You will get a copy of this eventually. So they're there as a prompt. But we have an agenda, you can see it. But first, I will line up just very, very briefly who we as a company are, just to establish some of our, say, credentials and credibility to host this presentation. And then the rest of the presentation will be dedicated to this out-of-date theme, this threats theme. And we're going to look at this from various perspectives. But as I say, I really have put this presentation together along with Raf to create more questions than it answers. And hopefully you'll see why as we go through this, because the subject matter is critical. It is a subject that sometimes does not get talked about enough. And reality is the way to help solve this subject is through questioning. So that will be the theme as we go through. Raf, Stuart, you've heard our names before probably. We have both been within the Johnson Controls Tyco ecosystem for well over 20 years. But who is Johnson Controls? What do we do? Here's a very brief snapshot. Let's say we on a global basis, we touch many lives through not just security products and fire, life safety, and so on, but equally HVAC and other things like building management systems and so on. But what, shall we say, for me makes us, I'll use the word special, is that ultimately we are bringing products together. We are creating integrations to provide solutions. And I think that's always the key word. It's about solution, about what problems we solve with the products we manufacture, be that, security or elsewhere. So a few highlighting numbers here. The numbers are overall huge. From a security products, we protect life safety, security, millions of people, billions of touch points, and so on. So overall, and the reason I use this is because what it allows myself and Raf to do is take a holistic view of this subject matter and bring to you our thoughts and our experiences. So cool, as far as I'm
Yeah, it's not once we have it, we are done, and we can offer a great platform. No, we are keep evolving, we are keep innovating the product range because the world is innovating as well over the time, as well in the smart home side or residential security, as well in the commercial and enterprise security. What is important are what are the key topics actually where we are innovating on is actually migrating to a cloud as a service as well. Um, the word AI and analytics is not a strange thing for you, but where are we using that in? I would say physical security systems within video and access control and everything. What is beyond that? So we are with AI. Um, uh, Building the right tools for security minded customers. What is also important is the user experiences. And we're going to show you that as well in some of the slides, how customers are seeing security systems. It should be easy to use. The day-to-day tasks should be easy to perform. How we do that, we can tell you on that during some of the slides. And then a key topic is integrating security systems and even go beyond security systems with an integrated and unified platform. These are the key things where we are working on. And next slide is for you, Stuart, right?
Yep, that's cool. So let's actually start to drill down. The title of this presentation is about vulnerability, and vulnerability to me means out of date. But the topic we'll be exploring is what do we mean by out of date? Because that can be, is a subject that can come from many, many directions. So here are some of the examples we will be overall talking about. So a vulnerability could be an out-of-date operating system. As we know, Windows XP, Windows 3.1, all the really great ones previously no longer supported. Why? Because they're all, ancient, out of date. They have vulnerabilities and so on and so forth. Windows 10 now in reality out of support. So these from a manufacturing perspective and from a user of a product perspective, the integrated spec, all have implications. Things though, not just about things like operating systems or out of date firmware, out of date software, but equally databases, operator details, things of this nature. If those are not kept clean and up to date, then there are vulnerabilities there as well. So here's a rhetorical question. In your access control system, how many credential holders, how many operators are still in the system who have long since left the organization? Those are vulnerabilities as well. Technologies such as card technologies, Raf will be drilling down on later, but again, things, swipe card, out of date, vulnerable. So there are many aspects and things to look at by what creates vulnerability. And that's something we will be drilling through as we go into the presentation. However, the key point is this. It is not a subject to be avoided. It is not something to think it's it's not priority. It's something that we will get around to. It's in the past. Things are still working. Why should we change? It's none of that. Because increasingly with cybersecurity, hospitals that are getting attacked and ransomware and all of these things, outdated systems, vulnerable systems create opportunities for people to cause problems, let's call it. But equally, these problems could be caused by themselves. Let me go back to the database. If my, let's say, card database, my operator database is fat, it's bloated, it's not kept clean, then that can slow systems down. That also can create vulnerabilities. So there are a number of things in there, bringing things up to date, all of which need to be addressed. We cannot be the ostrich in the sand, as you'll see as we go over this presentation. But The overall impact is the last line. That's the one I actually read. Health and safety, revenue. Keep things up to date. That helps protect that. Let things get behind. Those are my risks. Raf.
Yeah, and actually, I'm coming with a more firmer statement here. Our data security systems are a problem. And why are they a problem? If you use outdated technologies, communication protocols, potentially to give you undetected access to building and properties. If you have cars that you can copy, other people can come in to an area you even didn't detect that on time enough. It creates also a loss of business continuity, resulting in missed business results. It gives also an irritation. It's not only externally and it's not only about business figures, but also creates a lot of staff irritation, the loss of efficiency, and potentially also a higher cost. Also, data breaches and compliance violations and theft of intellectual property. These are all things that can seriously damage a company. It is the threat of reputation damage as well. A company is failing to properly protect the people, data, or property can seriously damage this reputation. If you are in the news, because you're a company that had a problem with their security system, it damaged a reputation. And also reliability and trust are critical to building and maintaining a company image as well. Don't let it ruin by actually just not outdating your security system and protecting your people. So, what is the worst case scenario? Are we doing a cost benefit analysis for the future? Do we doing the right thing? Uh, a lot of questions to answer also into the next slides, right? Into the next slides, we want to say like there are different responsibilities and who owns the subject? Well, or Brave Analytics is here. It's not just the manufacturer or the integrator, the installer. It's not the customer only that is responsible to that. It is actually all the parties here need to work together to make sure your security system is safe and secure to use and is updated over time like it should be. And that's those three, I would say, main concerns there with manufacturing integrator and customer. We're going to go a bit deeper into details, right, Stuart?
So, I mean, overall, it is a partnership. It is a shared responsibility because, as we'll see, us as a manufacturer provide certain tools. The integrator in the middle of this needs to know how to use them in conjunction with the end user of the system. But equally, the end user needs to be in a position to understand the system. Am I out of date? Am I in date? All of these things. So this is what we're going to now section the rest of the presentation to look at these individual components, let's say, starting with ultimately the end user. Now, the key point there I've put, and we'll drill down much more on this, is the operational requirement. What are my needs? Are they still the same as they were 5 years ago? So again, it's about questions. How do I audit my systems? All of these things. So let's take this to the next step. So ultimately, this to me, questions, questions, questions. How do we stay on top of security risks? And this, for, let's say, facilities managers, let's say security directors, operational managers, whomever it is, this is where it all starts. But these questions equally are what I call internal questions. How do we assess the privacy? How are we maintaining our databases? Are our cybersecurity elements up to date? Because with any system, a few slides back, I was talking about software upgrades, firmware upgrades. From our perspective as a manufacturer, when we release a new firmware, when we release a patch, when we release a new piece of software, there's functions in there to give new features, new value propositions and statements. But equally, there are more cyber hardenings. So for me, if I put my customer head on, it is ultimately, okay, are my systems as cyber secure and up to date as possible? Which is another way to say, have I ultimately got the latest versions in place? Or with some customers, they work on latest -1 version. It depends. That's a choice. Am I keeping things in conjunction with my integrator, at the right level? Do I know who's in my database of operators? Do I know who's in my card database, such as the access control? And are there facilities from the manufacturer to help me understand that? These are the key points going forward. So questions, questions, questions. To Raf, you're on mute, Raf.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, thank you. In the meantime, the company, the partners, and people may have changed. Ultimately, you're responsible for safety and security of your employees and your assets, right? So, and also, is my physical security systems and technology still aligned with the value of my protected assets and people? Things are evolving over time. Do I need to, and these are the more nice things actually, if you can look to the new stuff that is on the market, do I need to look beyond standard cards and credentials? Okay, are the card and credentials still up to date and the latest technologies and not vulnerable? But there are more things, and like mobile credentials, you see on the pictures as well, using AI, for example, for biometrics, facial recognition, but also like converged systems. If you do, we still look at 5 different physical security systems like video, that my elevators, your access control, your visitor management systems, and all these systems, are they still separate? Do I still have to maintain them all, or can I regroup them, converge them into one single system? Actually, well, that lower my cost of ownership over time, isn't it? Yes, it does. Did you make the math? Did you do the calculation about that? And be aware also sooner when AI is on your team, AI can help you. And if you give it another click on your on the slide deck, you will see actually how AI can help you to detect in an early stage potential threats on your premises. So it helps you not only to increase your security, but also over time lower the cost of ownership. And we as a manufacturer, we can assist you to prove savings from an updated systems. Perhaps you don't have all the elements to motivate or to show to your management, but we as a manufacturer can help you to do that. Right. And on the next slide, security isn't just fit and forget. Once installed, done for the rest of the time. Now, it is a product life cycle that we have to keep monitoring and managing. Also involving threats, demand involving technologies. Threats from the earlier days are not the same today. So we need to make sure that we have the right technologies to overcome the threats that are there. And modern systems offer just more than security nowadays. With the mobile credentials, the facial recognition, the way you invite visitors on your site, the way you manage your site, how people feel when they come to your site. And the health and safety are actually very important things that can be generated with modern security systems. Also, the expectations of people, of young, sophisticated people come on site, how they are using mobile phones, how they're using security systems, how they think about AI nowadays. This is actually you have to take into account when you design or your upgrades or your updates from your security systems. And actually, planned upgrades gives you a better performance and a lower long-term cost as well. It is not that you have to do the investment this year. a good schedule and a good visibility about the situation that you are in now, where you want to go, and schedule and plan the upgrades over time will keep your system over time up to date.
So from an end user perspective, as we say, it's all about questions. Am I up to date? How do I know I'm up to date? And so on. Those are the questions that they should be asking us. They should be asking their integrator, because us and the integrator are the specialists in this. The end user, the person who consumes the systems, use the systems. So if we now look from the integrator, and we now start to drill down to some of the more specifics here, then ultimately, again, it's about questions, but equally let's say the onus is on the integrator for things listed here, like to stay up to date and make sure they're matching the product with the end user requirements and so on. So these are the little things that we'll be looking at as we now go through this section. And they're the very important one at the bottom: be trained. Very important indeed. So let's start.
So for the integrators and installers here on the call, I'm going to put you on the spot. You need to have a deeper understanding of complex operations and risk environments. For those customers and users here on the call, you have to make sure you work with integrators and installers that have a deeper understanding, that can deliver the design and the service of intelligent security and safety solutions. Yes, of course, you have a broad choice of products to do that, but the integrators and installers are the people specialized in that, and also in regulatory and compliance requirements, because there are a lot of regulatory compliance and regulations are there, national, international. You as an integrator and installer need to be on top of that. You have the tools to assess and doing site surveys to see and to judge what is wrong, what is correct, what is old, what is new, and giving a consultancy and advice to your end users, because they see you as an important part of this chain of updating. Also, having a security system is good, but how is it security system is hardened? Is it made safe? Is it installed with the right username and passwords? Are the privileges divided so that we don't leave anything unprotected? So do we do a right breach detection, and automated device management? Actually, you integrators, you should be aware about what are the software versions of my customers and what need to be upgraded and when, doing the patch management. So there is a responsibility of integrator installers that need to be provided to your end users, right?
And to take that a little further, and these are the vital elements. Things change. Who's responsible? Who should flag this to the customer? Should the customer be made aware well in advance? Because things like system upgrades, if they're done, piece by piece, version by version, things are kept up to date, then those types of system migrations are manageable. The fact when ultimately a system is at a very old version and needs to be brought up to a new version can be very time consuming and costly, because ultimately I might have to go up in stages instead of one big jump. And these things need to be planned for. It could be that even, the hardware now, let's say the PC, is out of date. So ultimately these things like who's responsible? How do I carry it out? How do I plan for this? Because we all know that out-of-date software and firmware creates vulnerabilities. That is an obvious statement of this whole presentation. But from the end user perspective, they start to ask the questions, am I up to date? If not, why not? From the integrator installer perspective, okay, who is responsible? How do we take these systems stage by stage moving forward? But equally, and I think any, let's say, style of integrator, style of management, of style of manufacturing is not just about saying, okay, here's the product, install it, it's done. It's about a consultative approach. And that's how we, in conjunction with our business partners, how we approach things. Because yes, we make product, that's our function, but equally we are there to educate through sessions like this as to how the product should be used, what needs to be looked at. But things also to highlight, I'll literally read it there. This subject is overlooked. I've touched on it already. Credentials. How many people have got cards that are no longer valid, therefore a previous employment? Those, how do I manage them? How do I ensure that operators, log out correctly, that how I stop people from accessing my building, my property, my assets when they are no longer with the organization? What happens if somebody is on long-term sick? What happens to their card? Is it a vulnerability? All of these things, as activity timeout as such, need to be explored, need to be decided upon. Are my cameras still correct for the application? And we'll touch on that a little bit more in a moment. But questions. How do I assess that my system is up to date, that it is running efficiently? All of these things, because as I mentioned, bloated databases, slow down systems, potentially even crash systems. So how am I managing my thousands and thousands of events from my access control system? What do I do with those events? How do I archive them? These are all questions internally to the integrator, but equally in this consultative approach, questions and topics for the end user, because these all need to be at the very front and planned for and dealt with, and also things, and Raf's touched on it, centralization. Can I use centralization as a tool? Can I integrate my products together? So actually, instead of an operator logging on a system here and logging on a system there, perhaps with an integration, then they log on once. And the less logins I have to manage, the more secure my system is ultimately. So if we look at this in some more detail, and you can see there, and I do like these, Windows 98, and believe it or not, there are still some systems around running on that, old swipe cards, things of this nature. This is like, what do I do? How do I audit my customer in conjunction with them to see if things are up to date? Are cameras still looking in the right direction? Are they still giving the right picture? Are they giving the right quality of picture? Who is managing passwords? Who is, collecting all this data? How do I collect this data? What version I'm on? Where in the video management system, the access system, whatever system, do I look to find that information? Because from a manufacturing perspective, it's there. It's in the system. It needs to be found. So am I familiar with that system? My physical access control, is it with a service contract with the customer, or is everything reactive? I'm due to go meet my customer next week. Is the SSA up to date, the software support agreement? If not, am I pre-armed with the initial quotation? Because all of these things, and we'll talk about SSAs a little bit more, are vital to have already thought about, before any meetings with the customer, but equally as, let's say, a consultative integrator, these are all topics that I should have at my fingertips, because these are everything that actually keeps the end user, up to date, the least level of vulnerabilities, and so on. So always about questions, always about preparation, always about knowledge of the system and of the customer. And that's the key to winning with this subject. Raf?
Yeah, indeed. And we go a bit further on that. Be the subject matter expert, as the title says here. When you go to the customer, and actually, we can look at this as an opportunity as well. There's, of course, a security risk for your end user. It's an opportunity for the integrator, the installer, to look a bit deeper into the system and actually having some making sure or that you propose the right service contract to them. Because have a look at these things here. Yes, I have a robust security system, but I have limitations with update support and potential vulnerabilities, right? What do I have to do? Do I have to replace a system or that part element of the systems? Have a look at that. Typically, UDS 1100 serial to IP converters, many used over the years, yeah, to have serial controllers connected to a network. But many of them, and trust me, they are with default username and passwords. Not only that is a problem, but the unit itself, there are also some firmwares on. Did I update it, or is it better to replace it with a more modern communication protocol? Old legacy controllers, they have also uh, limitations in upgrades and adding new features. Look at those. What are the controllers that need to be replaced? Can they still support new car technologies and new reader technologies as well? If they cannot, perhaps potential to be replaced. So also all the controllers don't support new communication that is needed to look a bit further into the communication protocol and the encryption that is used. And then the basic stuff, are the power supplies still safe? Power supplies, heat dissipation as well, look at that. Are they still safe to be used in an environment? And are the backup batteries also frequently renewed? Because there are some lifespan or limited lifetime on batteries. You have to replace them every so many years, depending on the manufacturing of the batteries and the way they are installed, the environment that they are installed. So there are a lot of things to look at as a subject matter expert. Another part of that is on this slide is the old communication technologies. We're using since 4 decades an old vegan communication protocol. It was a simple one direction of here's a card number to the controller communication. Nowadays, there are better protocols, more secure protocols. Either it is a proprietary format or an open standard secured communication protocol like the OSDP. It's not only giving you an encrypted communication, which Wiegand is, just plain text of communication. So OSDP, for example, give you new possibilities as well. Next to the secure channel of communication, it gives you also proactive monitoring about the edge devices that are installed, the readers, card readers, biometric readers, or is facial recognition or fingerprint or whatever element that is installed. OSDP gives the possibility to monitor, to do the upgrade of firmware, to do file transfer, to do change settings from a host. So many more functional features and functionalities if you use the new communication technologies going forward. If you need more information on that, consult our sales team or self, and we will help you actually to guide you through the best choice of communication technologies out there. On the next slide as well, when it comes to more card credential technologies, and uh, we all know that low frequency, the 1 to 5 kilohertz proximity technology or magnet stripes are actually vulnerable technologies, cannot be used anymore for new installations, but there are so many used over time with existing installations. This card can easily be cloned or sniffered. There are some tools like the Flipper Zero you can find on Amazon. You just can copy an old card technology and having a duplicate in your hand. That means that is like making a second physical key for your front door, right? If you have a copy of your physical key to enter in your home, that means somebody has entrance into your premises. You don't want to have that for your private environment, but you don't want to have that for your company security neither. Look at these because are so easy to copy nowadays. Even in the US, you find a kiosk where you can duplicate car technologies just like you can duplicate keys that are unprotected. This is a risk, and we have to have a look at as subject matter expert, integrator, inform your customer about this potential vulnerability. Go to the next slide. And Stuart going to explain a bit more what we can do from a manufacturer side. There's a lot what we can do, right, Stuart?
For sure. But before we sort of jump into the manufacturing side, my and Raf's side of the business, let's call it, for me, and just listening to the previous section and some of what Raf has been talking about and some of what I've been talking about, to me, the important thing from the integrator, the subject matter expert, is that the integrator is in a unique position because they are in between the end user and the manufacturer. So being that subject matter expert, knowing their product is vital, but equally knowing their customer, that also is vital because not knowing the customer, not knowing the product equally creates threats, because that means that maybe I'm not giving the correct advice on version, correct advice on how to clean up the database, all of these little scenarios, correct advice on this controller is out of date because it's running Windows CE, as an example. These little types of things, because all of this can create vulnerabilities, create the slowing down of a system. I keep mentioning bloated databases, but equally there are other things that slow a system down or maybe periodically stop the system. And that in itself, the consequential effect is vulnerability of system, because an access, a video system or whatever it is, any security system that's not working at its peak performance creates vulnerabilities. So that integrator is unique in this. They're sat there. They need to be, as I say, that consultative approach. But enough of that. Let's go on to the manufacturing side. And this is where Rafa and I come in, ultimately with the access control of my video and such, and start to provide tools and functions and new products that help mitigate some of these risks, that help to bring things up to date to again reduce these level of vulnerabilities. So let's start here as such. So for us, what is important? What is our focus? It's not just to say, oh, here's a new access control system or here's a new video system. It's to focus on these particular things here, which is latest technology, bringing to market products and services that ultimately can leverage things like cloud technology, but only when it makes sense. What I mean by that is we design, we develop, we manufacture products for longevity, backwards compatibility, because ultimately and we'll talk about product life cycle in a moment, any product life cycle is about a journey and bringing the customer, the end user, with us on that journey through various iterations of products and versions. So that we have to build into our psyche. Let's say, we are there to not fire and forget. Here's a product and we forget about it. No, these products have to be by nature of our customer base. We have some very enviable end users. We support with our products some very, international high-end, let's call it, customer base. So we have to be that manufacturer that is there to keep them safe in this journey, to provide them with updates, not just a product, because things move fast in this industry. We are there to help through new features, get more value, get more functions out of the system, So again, constant upgrades, things that are like bring new features, bring new capabilities, which might be, how to cleanse my database, how to know when somebody hasn't used their access card for 3 weeks, as an example, how to know when somebody's used their access card when they shouldn't have done. Little things like I mentioned access, but there are equally goes into the video side of things. Operators been logged in too long. That's not safe. Log them off. Little things like this. It's incumbent upon us to bring these updates, features, securities, and so on to the market. Raf?
Yeah, indeed. And what products and devices should be included in our view? Actually, if you look at this picture, every single line is actually communication and communication protocol. Ask the question, is that safe and secure and well protected? Right? And next to that, you see in red the operating systems. Yes, you have operating systems of mobile devices on the databases as well, and all the workstations there. And then what about the software that is installed in there on there? Is that up to date? Is that really updated accordingly? And are they working together with the latest technology and the encryption? And then you have the firmware in green. If you have NVRs, you have cameras, you have readers, whether they are wireless readers or just card readers or biometric readers, or the controllers, they have firmware to be maintained as well. It's also an evolving system. Now, the good thing with Johnson Control, we develop, manufacture, and distribute all these products together. We are still manufacturing or developing and manufacturing controllers hardware together with the software and the firmware. And when we test things, they are all together as one holistic system. So that's the good thing about it. But we have to make sure that everything in these systems are safe and secure.
And safe and secure is what everything is about. But I've talked about product life cycle. So here is just for a moment or two why PLC product life cycle is important. Just one little example. We release new versions, we release new capabilities. As I mentioned, we plan for these. Now, life cycle can be affected by many things. It could be legislation, laws change, we have to adapt. It could be things like I mentioned there, operating systems and CPUs, 32-bit. We no longer touch 32-bit. Haven't done for a couple of years because it has vulnerabilities in there. So we are there constantly looking to say, yeah, cool. We have voice of customer. They are saying we need this feature, that function. Fantastic. We are looking at, what components are available because technologies move on. Components, memory, CPUs, whatever it is, become obsolete. So these things drive how and why and when product is released, obsoleted, migrated, and so on. And the key from choosing the right business partners are the ones that have, shall we say, a good or an excellent life cycle philosophy, not just something that is reacting to market conditions. And that again is vital. So, one of the questions and one of the things that Raf and I get asked a lot to do is present our vision, present our life cycle. And we're more than happy to do it because we're proud of it. But it is vital in this, mitigating threat situation. Equally is cybersecurity. And this is a subject people have probably thought, not again, cyber, for sure. But it is a subject that can be used too many times. It is a subject that can be just thrown out there. Oh, it's cyber. But where's the substance to it? Cyber is like a veneer, a thin veneer. It's on the surface. What's below that? So, partner with, choose manufacturers that have, are very robust, certified cybersecurity program, because it's not just about, saying, oh, my latest product is secure, but it's looking at what's coming through, what's appearing as threats, and adapting products to that as well. What do you think, Raf?
Yeah, absolutely. It says there, compliance is not negotiable. We need
Mm.
to make sure that we comply with all the rules as well. And if you do a click, you will see some other symbols as well. It depends on where you are in the world. You have to comply with the regulations and rules, but also just with the standard cybersecurity things in communication, in the way you innovate, the way you develop products. And if you go to the next slides, it gives you a bit of an overview, and for us actually, yeah, it's somewhere a pain perhaps to always comply with all the regulations that are out there worldwide, but it helps us as well to stay on top of every potential threat. Yes, we comply with a lot of these rules, and we're looking forward as well beyond these things like post-quantum computing. What's going to happen in 10 years from now? Well, we know what to do actually to make sure that over time we keep up to date with our potential threats, even the post-quantum computing technologies, making sure that our encryption is not done with a long extra large number, but the way we do the encryption and the encrypted communication is done in an efficient way to be post-quantum computing safe and secure. A lot of work still to do on that, but we are looking in that. We are working on that. Yeah.
So
So
that
then,
means ultimately planning ahead. So again, all of part of this product life cycle, things revolve around product life cycle. So it's, let's say, a manufacturer responsibility, our responsibility to provide solutions within products to do things like know when my SSA is running out, know if I'm on, older versions of a product, to provide things like two-factor authentication, open authorization, single sign, all of these things, the things there on the right-hand side you can read, because if we focus our products, and because particularly from our perspective, because we make many different products of different genres, fire intrusion, access, video, sprinklers, HVAC, BMS, so on, it allows us to drive these efficiencies, because an efficient system, a system that provides good workflow for the operators of that system, reduces vulnerabilities. It's not just about keeping up to date. It's about also making systems intuitive, easy to use, things of this nature, integrated. Because the more we do this, then the better use of the system the end user gets. And the better use of the system, the more value they get from the system, the more return on investment, let's say. But equally, that reduces vulnerabilities, because a difficult system to use can be a vulnerable system. So I mentioned things like, many times now, operator management. Can we enforce password rotation? Things of this nature. Ultimately, about how we provide the information that is valuable to the integrator, subject matter expert, the end user, to help them keep themselves, without the vulnerabilities. That secure communications that Raf has just mentioned, and all of these things.
yeah, you can, in the interest of time as well, you can click a few
I'll click all
through.
the way through. Yeah, there we
Thank you very much. And actually, also how to improve your security is looking at, and we mentioned that a few times, the new credential technologies over time. We came from MaxStripe proximity, and we're going further into the mobile credentials that actually are an ultimate safe and secure credential nowadays, where we're working towards. So have a look at that. It not only mobile credentials are safe and secure, but actually it is also very convenient. On the other slide, Stuart, there, what about new communications? We are permanently developing new elements that are fitting in the security systems, like the OSDP input and output boards in all kind of variants, next to the reader technologies, to making sure that not only you have that encrypted communication, but you have also can make use of the new features on how these devices in the network are managed, and also over time also giving all cost-effective wiring, what wasn't the case in the previous versions of communication that we had. So overall, we are keep innovating, developing in that direction. Yeah, you can go to the next slide.
And for me, it's also about this operational requirement. The end user, it maybe installed the system 4 or 5 years ago. Is it the same type of business? Have things changed? What was vulnerable? What was needed protecting 5 years ago? The value of that, is that still the same? Has that changed? What are the new operational requirements? And I think that is very, very key, because over time, customer end user needs change. And what might not have been a problem now could be. So this is why I say that from the central perspective, the integrator and so on, that knowing the customer, knowing the products, knowing what their operational requirement is vital, because new things come along. We touched on AI. You saw a nighttime picture that was from our R&D area. That was actually the car park. But let me touch on AI again, because here, let's see if my video will play. Yes, there we go. There's a typical video. There's a person. That person is very difficult to spot, very difficult until they're highlighted. AI can do the hard work. AI, as we mentioned, is on the team. 5 years ago, reality, AI did not exist in cameras. So as operational requirements change and products change, then new risks, new solutions come through. So, I mean, here, just to mention a couple of profiles of camera, with things like a corner camera, with things like a panoramic camera, I can start to eliminate blind spots. These types of cameras are reasonably new on the market, and particularly with the AI, there's the AI in the bottom right. On the panoramic camera, there's the image on the left from the corner camera. So it's about this constant assessment of operational requirement. What is the operational requirement of the end user? The end user should be saying, is my operational requirement still the same? And do the products actually meet that requirement? Because there is a plethora of new products around that can now help with risks that previously were not highlighted, or ultimately, they didn't have a solution 5 years ago. But now there can be. Know the product. This is the key point. Raf? Oh, went too far, Raf.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, that's the nice stuff. You show always the nice stuff. Now, here, actually, what is critical is, and that's where we are staying, and that's what we are doing. We are hardening the hardware. Every hardware that we come out into the field, we make sure that we have the secured communications, the TLS 1.3, AES encryption. We make sure that we have all the bells and whistles, all the tools embedded in hardware to make sure that it is safe in an environment, that we don't leave any backdoor open. I'm not going to spend time reading through this, but these are the typical things that are included in a controller development, in typical controller development. You go to the next slide, and that's also an important part of a security system, is keeping this up to date, making sure that your software, your operating system, firmware, and everything is up to date, Mr. Customer. As an integrator, it's your responsibility to propose a maintenance contract, a software support agreement to the end user, and that is to make sure that the customer over time, and typically 1 or 2 times a year, there's a new software version, making sure that it is automatically renewed at the customer side, because software is permanently under development. Also, it allows you to analyze new opportunities and comply with the data privacy regulations like the GDPR or others. It also strengthens existing policies and processes. That's an important part of meeting the data protection rules, right? But as a data controller, if you have a lot of data on your security systems, you are ultimately responsible for that, and you have to prove that you invest in protecting your data assets. So a valid SSA is a tool to stay tuned, and that's for a good reason on that.
And
On
if
the next slide, right?
Yeah, I was going
Uh,
to say, and if we look at those good reasons that Rafa's been talking about, SSAs can be sometimes one of those subjects that people don't want to talk about, they don't like to talk about, or they're boring, but actually they are vital. I'll probably say the most vital thing, in addition to asking questions and making sure that the systems meet the operational requirement or the new operational requirements of the customer. SSAs are there for good reasons, to keep things up to date, to keep cybersecurity hardenings there, to ensure the highest level of support from things like technical support, level 3, things of this nature. They are ultimately there to ensure that I'm keeping in synchronization with my versions, and all of these types of scenarios. You can read them there, but it keeps you on top of the cyber side of things as well, because keeping everything up to date keeps me protected from the cyber side. I think fair to say, and we're literally just on time, it's a huge subject. It all starts with questions. It all starts in partnership, manufacturer, integrator, end user. It starts with integrator knowing the product, knowing the end user. It starts with the end user asking lots of questions. It starts everywhere. It's the key point. But the main thing is know the product, know the functions, know the operational requirement, and how I can meet that new requirements, because they change constantly, with the products that are available and new. Any last words, Raf?
no, thank you
Yeah.
for wrapping this up. Ryan?
Wonderful, gents. I mean, first of all, thank you. A really fluid and detailed presentation. I can see that there's been some good engagement from the audience there. And I think that there are many parts of that discussion that could be a webinar on its own. So fair play to the two of you for getting through that in an hour. Now, some of the members of the audience have been asking about the presentation slides and about a recording. I just want to confirm for everybody that we will send around those slides and a final recording of the webinar in the coming days. So that will land in your inbox from myself. Now, we've had some questions come through, some really interesting ones as well, touching on different areas. And I think the first one that I'd like to address, it came from an anonymous attendee, but are outdated security systems simply a technical issue, or have they become a strategic risk affecting business continuity and organizational reputation?
That actually is a fantastic question. Um, I would say it is all of the above. An outdated system is a strategic issue. It can affect continuity. I keep using the fact of bloated databases. I cannot stress enough that when databases get too full, then things slow down. And that could be because the system is old, the database is an old version of a database or old technology. These are all the little considerations and more ultimately. So, yeah, certainly it's a strategic need, let's say, from a planning perspective. Raf, anything to it?
No, no, you sum it up perfectly, Stuart.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Stuart. And we've had a couple of questions from a gentleman named Leonard, who wants to talk about the most common cybersecurity vulnerabilities, as well as the compliance challenges that are found in legacy security systems. So could you shed a little bit more light on that, please?
Yeah, I saw the question came up as well. And actually, what is part of an organization and the security is actually people around it as well. And it's also very important to make sure that everybody in a company is aware about or is security minded as well. And actually that goes from, and everybody know that in cybersecurity, from typically from opening the wrong email, clicking the wrong button. Actually, it is of course a lot about people itself and how they behave in a building. Leaving a door open for somebody that tailgating with you is, for example, also a security breach, just as an example. But next to that, yes, we have to make sure that the framework of your security system is safe and secure, that there is no backdoor open. And then, like we mentioned during the presentation, it is not just a one time, but it is a permanently product life cycle and installation life cycle to keep it up to date to the latest technology. I hope that answered the question, or Stuart, you can add something to
No, I
it.
think that was perfect, to be honest.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you, Raf. And another interesting one here, actually, and I think this is probably a nice way to wrap up. And that's a bit of advice to Nidal, and I think this advice would be relevant as well to a lot of people on the call. And that is, how can an organization identify the right time to transition from an outdated security system to an intelligent one before a failure or a breach actually takes place?
It's very interesting because actually, I don't think there's a full answer to that because there is never a right time. There are wrong times, which is to delay. So now, because ultimately, if you wait, then you're limping along with this old system. And it's like thinking, oh, I'll change my laptop next week because there'll be some new technology. Great. But there'll be some newer technology the week after and the week after that. So I think ultimately the answer is not to wait now, however, doing the homework first. So am I partnering with the right manufacturer? Am I partnering with the right integrator, installer? To be very defined on what's not working with my old system and what I need from my new system over and above. I think if the planning is done, if the research is done, if I really heavily define my operational requirements, and that's key, very, very specific in what I want and what I need and why, then the right system can be chosen, but equally doing the homework of, is it the right partner? Is it the right manufacturer? But certainly now, and don't wait, because if somebody's asking that question, it means there's already doubts. And therefore, it's get the budget and start the planning, ultimately, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah, you nailed it. Actually, doing the assessment now and the budget planning over the next years, right?
Mm.
Because you need the budget planning to do actually keep your system up to date over the next, well, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Do that right now.
Yeah.
Assess and plan and budget.
And don't delay, honestly.
Wonderful. Thank you, Stuart. Thank you, Raf. Really good answers to some really interesting questions. I think that pretty much wraps everything up. So I'd like to thank the audience who have stayed for the duration of what has been a really insightful session. As promised, I'll send the recording, I'll send the slides to everybody in the coming days so that you can review that. And I think I'll also include Stuart and Raf on that email as well, because I think there might be some dialogue to continue there. And it's always good to keep talking about these things. So thanks to the audience. Stuart, Raf, again, a really wonderful presentation, bouncing back and forth. Very natural, plenty of good insights. So thank you both for your time. And we look forward to seeing more from you in the future.
Cool. Our absolute pleasure. Thank you, everybody.